So I wanted to have some fun here today and talk about a random ass character that would be funny as all hell if they actually got into the next Smash Bros. Game, and that's the Tetris block. And I know I'm not the only one who thought about this on YouTube, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people made videos talking about this, but I just wanted to talk about it myself, just basically give my own thought process behind it. Because yeah, I don't expect this to be a thing, but at the same time, I mean, we can't really treat it like it couldn't happen, because you know that Sakurai likes throwing in joke-like characters, and I feel like the Tetris block, as much as that would represent a lot of puzzle games throughout gaming history, it would kind of look like a joke character where you're literally just playing as a Tetris block. But yeah, I just want to talk about it here today because this is why I make videos on the channel, just for fun, just for conversation, so we could all talk about it in the comments. But yeah, let's get into this. So when it comes to Super Smash Bros., one thing I've always loved about the franchise is the fact that it always finds ways to surprise people with characters that nobody would ever expect to actually make it into the game. Because every single time we think we know exactly what Nintendo was going to do next, they always end up throwing some random curveball at us that completely catches everybody off guard. And honestly, that's kind of why I even started thinking about the idea of a Tetris block becoming a playable character in the first place. Because yeah, on paper, it sounds absolutely ridiculous. Like if somebody walked up to you and said, yo, the next Smash character should be a Tetris block, your immediate reaction would probably be something like, what the hell are you even talking about? And trust me, I completely understand that reaction because I had the exact same thought myself when the idea first popped into my head. But at the same time, the more I actually sat here and thought about it, the more I started realizing that this honestly feels like the exact kind of weird thing that Smash Bros. Would somehow find a way to make work. Because let's be real here, we already got Piranha Plant as a playable character, and don't get me wrong, I actually like Piranha Plant in Smash, but that was one of those reveals where people sat there wondering if Sakurai had finally lost his mind, because out of all the Mario characters people expected to see, absolutely nobody was out there seriously predicting a random enemy plant becoming a fighter. And yet somehow that made it work. They gave the character a unique moveset, funny animations, and a overall personality that made the whole thing feel charming instead of stupid. And honestly, I think that's kind of the same logic I'm applying here with the Tetris block. Because when you really think about it, Tetris is one of the most iconic games ever made. Like, one of the most recognizable video games in gaming history. You don't even have to be a hardcore gamer to know what Tetris is. Your parents probably know what it is, your grandma probably played Tetris at some point. It's just one of those games that has existed for so long and has been released on so many different platforms that basically everybody has experienced it in some way. And that's honestly why I don't think the idea is as crazy as people initially think, because Smash Bros. Has always felt like a celebration of gaming history as a whole, and if we're talking about legendary games that shaped the industry, Tetris absolutely deserves to be in that conversation. And honestly, I think that's the funniest part about this whole conversation. The fact that the idea sounds so dumb at first, but the more you think about it, the more you could weirdly start seeing the vision, because Smash Bros. Has always embraced chaos, creativity, and unexpected ideas, and that's part of what makes the franchise so fun to begin with. You never really know what's possible anymore. While I'm definitely not sitting here saying I actually expect Nintendo to announce a Tetris block as the next character in Smash or something like that, I also think we've reached a point with Smash where you can't rule out anything anymore, because every time we think something is impossible, Nintendo somehow finds a way to surprise us all over again. Now, obviously, the biggest question people are probably going to ask when they hear this idea is, okay, but how would Tetris block even fight? And honestly, that's probably the funniest part about this entire conversation when you first think about it. It sounds impossible, like it's literally just blocks falling from the sky. That's the entire gameplay loop of Tetris. You rotate pieces around, stack them together, clear lines, and try not to fill the entire screen before the game ends. So naturally, people are going to wonder, how in the world would you turn something like that into a full Smash character with attacks, movement, animations, and all that other stuff? But honestly, I think there's way more potential here than people realize, because if Nintendo wanted to fully embrace the chaotic nature of Tetris, it would honestly make the character feel completely unique compared to everybody else on the roster. Like imagine attacks involving different block shapes constantly appearing around the fighter. You could have pieces dropping from above the stage, rotating into opponents, stacking on top of each other, or even temporarily creating obstacles during battle. And honestly, I think that would fit perfectly into the kind of unpredictable energy that Smash Bros. Already has. Because Smash has never really been afraid to let certain characters feel goofy or weird as long as they're still fun to play. And I think a Tetris-based moveset could end up being one of the most creative characters in the entire game if they really lean to the concept hard enough. And then when you get into stuff like a Final Smash, the possibilities there are hilarious because you could literally just have giant Tetris blocks raining down all over the screen while the classic music starts playing in the background. Like imagine trapping everybody inside some giant Tetris board while massive pieces keep falling faster and faster until the screen completely fills up. That honestly sounds like the exact kind of over-the-top nonsense Smash Bros. Would absolutely do for a joke-style character. And the funny thing is, I actually think people would love it because even though the concept itself sounds ridiculous, it would probably end up becoming one of the characters people remember because of how unique and chaotic they are. And honestly, one thing I really like about this idea is the fact that it would represent a style of gaming that Smash doesn't really focus on all that much. Because outside of somebody like Dr. Mario, if you really want to count him, we don't really have a major puzzle game representation in Smash Bros. Right now. Most of the roster comes from platformers, RPGs, fighting games, action games, shooters, and stuff like that. But puzzle games are still a massive part of gaming history too, and Tetris is arguably the biggest puzzle game ever created. So in a weird way, even though the Tetris block sounds like a meme pick at first, that I actually think it would represent an important part of gaming history that Smash hasn't really touched yet. And honestly, I think another reason why I enjoy talking about ideas like this so much is because some of my favorite moments in Smash Bros. History has come from the franchise doing things that nobody saw coming. Because yeah, obviously it's always exciting whenever a huge fan favorite character gets revealed. Everybody loses their minds over these moments, and rightfully so, but at the same time, there's something really special about the weird picks too. Those characters that make everybody just stop and go, wait, seriously? Because those usually are the reveals that end up becoming unforgettable simply because of how unexpected they were in the moment. And I honestly feel like Smash Bros. Has kind of trained the community to expect the unexpected at this point, because over the years, we've seen the roster become more and more insane with every new entry. Characters from completely different genres, companies, art styles, and gameplay types somehow all coexist together in one giant crossover game. And because of that, the idea of something weird getting added honestly doesn't feel nearly as impossible anymore. Like years ago, people probably would have laughed if you told them some of the current Smash roster would actually become real, but now people are willing to entertain almost anything because Smash has built a reputation around unpredictability. And honestly, I think unpredictability is part of what keeps the franchise exciting after all these years, because if every single new character was always just the safest possible choice, eventually things would probably start feeling kind of repetitive. But when Nintendo throws in random curveballs every now and then, it keeps people talking, it keeps the community guessing, and honestly, it keeps the entire reveal cycle fun. Even a character isn't somebody's personal most wanted pick, there's still entertainment value in seeing Nintendo pull something completely unexpected out of nowhere, and that's honestly why I think the idea of a Tetris block is fun to even think about in the first place. But at the end of the day, do I actually think this is going to happen? Probably not. I'm fully aware this is a super random idea, and there's a very good chance Nintendo never even remotely considers something like this, but that's honestly not really the point of the video to begin with. The fun part is just imagining it. Think about how ridiculous it would be, how Nintendo could potentially make it work, and how the community would react if something like this somehow became real one day. Because at the end of the day, Smash Bros. Discussions are supposed to be fun, and honestly, imagining a giant Tetris block dropping onto the battlefield and beating the hell out of Mario is just way too funny for me not to even talk about. But yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about in today's video. It's just, you know, really funny just thinking about stuff like this, like a Tetris block. Like out of all the characters that I could have possibly made a video on today, a Tetris block, like really? That's what we're going to be talking about in this video. But hey, I mean, even though I don't expect it to happen, it would just be very funny. And it would just be like really cool to see like what sort of like moveset Sakurai would give a Tetris block if he ever allowed it in the game. It would just be very funny. And I don't know, as much as I say I don't want it to happen, I kind of want it to happen just because of how chaotic it is as a pick for a fighter. But I mean, hey, you know, like I said, Tetris is one of the most iconic games of all time. You can't really argue with that. So if that ever were to happen, as random as it sounds, I probably wouldn't be all that surprised. But that's all I have to say here. I am very curious to read the comments of this video, because a lot of you guys that happen to stumble across this video are probably very confused of your subscription feed, or if you were looking for some kind of Smash video to watch today, you're probably like, why is this dude talking about a Tetris block? So very curious to see those comments. So let me know. If you've enjoyed this video, of course, be sure to like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Make sure to follow me on all my socials, join my Discord server, click on that bell for notifications. And I hope all of you guys are having a fantastic day, wherever the day may be, if it's the daytime, the nighttime, or the evening. And I'll see you guys in the next video. As always, peace out.